I want to wrap up with our panel discussion with really looking at the fact that I think a lot of people assume that big productions fall out the sky, right? It's a big production and made it onto Netflix. Of course, the journey was easy. Of course, the money was there. And that's not the case, right? So just a word from everybody, and I'll start with our panelists joining us virtually, is what's your one thing that you think needs to happen going forward to make sure that those big productions do continue to happen and that there is continued support and continued budget to make sure that we can continue producing products that end up on a global scale consumed by a global audience. Pippa, I already have you on the screen, so I'm going to start with you, and then we can go through to Vanessa after you.
Well, I think from a natural history point of view, we're actually at a huge advantage as Africans because we have some of the best wildlife and nature stories on the planet. And for decades and decades and decades, people have been flying in from England and America and other places and filming our animals and our nature. And most of the time, Africans don't even get to see those nature shows. So that's the first thing, is for people to really be aware that there's a huge opportunity in the natural history filmmaking sphere. And if you have a good story and if you're really, really invested in it, and if you have something that's unique and have the right context, which is always the biggest thing, I think people are ready to listen to us. And I think there's also a realization that we can't keep having stories about, Africa's environment being told by people who've never lived here.
Fantastic. Thanks, Pippa. Vanessa?
I think to ensure that whatever you're producing is going to be a hit globally, I really believe not only making sure the story is authentic, like we've been discussing all evening, but making sure that your investors, the partners you're partnering with, are going to be plugging in additional monies into that budget to make sure skills development and bringing up the next tier of talent is built into that production budget. With an animation, it's a very privileged space where you spend quite a lot of money studying in the animation space, and there are very few opportunities. But if we can make sure that a part of that budget is signed off, that there's skills development happening at the same time, while in pre-production, while in development, while in production, I think we're going to see people rise up quite quickly. And I think that's a huge success, because we're not only telling an authentic story, we've got talent who are actually telling their story. The stories are super diverse. They're being skilled in their production. And I think we then take everybody to the finish line with something that's a global success. So that would really be something I'd like to flag as something that needs to happen for the animation industry. There's a huge, huge gap. People aren't experienced enough. Even on my current projects, I'm looking to internationals, Europeans, Americans, Canadians, to help play key crew roles, and especially roles where there's such few women in this industry. And I think if we can just acknowledge that it's going to take extra money, as soon as the clock starts ticking, you need to produce and deliver, that pressure is on. But almost if you acknowledge that you're grooming and you're taking a team with you, then they can actually have the chance to do this on the next time round, next episodes, next season, next feature film. So it's really important that we keep that in mind. And I think, sorry, going on a bit, I think now is the time that people are wanting to hear those pitches for really African stories. And I think we can be bold enough to say, I really think we need to add a couple more zeros to that budget to make sure that we've got a team that are being raised up through the making of this. And I think you will be listened to, and I think the money will be signed off. So that's what I think.
Fingers crossed that the money is signed off. Thank you so much, Vanessa. Bradley, your one thing.
One thing for me is, there's a great opportunity that is currently unfolding or has unfolded. And that opportunity is that Africans telling African stories, and I think we haven't had that before, at least not a lot, at least not to the extent of the demand that I'm sensing through various conversations that I'm having. And I think development is key, and investing into, developing our create and developing our stories, because there's a great demand that is coming, and then coupled with that, is for the powers that be, whether it's government, arts and culture, whether it's the DTI, is to recognize the huge potential, that is there, and to help facilitate, the realization of that potential through the various structures that they have in place, and actually, seeing the film industry, the content industry, the creative industries, not only as a nice to have, but a fully fledged industry that can really create jobs, grow the economy, and make a difference to South Africans, and maybe not to see us as a nice to have, being in entertainment industry. So the one thing that I'd like to see is focus on how we develop our stories, because the demand is growing on a daily basis for African stories told by Africans.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Bradley.